8 comedians Johnny Carson knew were actually evil in real life. For 30 years, Johnny Carson welcomed America's funniest people into our living rooms. His warm laugh and easy manner created an atmosphere where comedians felt comfortable enough to let their guard down. But when the cameras stopped rolling and the audience went home, Carson often saw a very different side of comedy's biggest names. Johnny had a photographic memory for cruelty, revealed a former Tonight Show producer who worked alongside Carson for over a decade. He could watch a comedian charm millions on camera, then turn around and scream at a production assistant seconds later, and he never forgot it. According to those closest to Carson, the legendary host maintained a mental blacklist of comedians whose public personas were radically different from their private behavior. Stars who portrayed themselves as lovable, charitable, or wholesome on screen, but who Carson knew to be cruel, abusive, or morally bankrupt behind the scenes. Tonight, we reveal the 8 comedians Johnny Carson privately considered to be genuinely awful human beings. Stars whose dark private lives and vicious treatment of others stood in stark contrast to their carefully crafted public images. Opens Friday, March the 24th. Would you welcome Jerry Lewis? Music. Applause. 1. Jerry Lewis, the humanitarian with a heart of stone. Jerry Lewis built his career playing lovable goofs and childlike characters. His annual muscular dystroph telethons raised millions for charity, creating an image of Lewis as a deeply caring humanitarian devoted to helping children. According to Carson's private observations, nothing could have been further from the truth. Jerry Lewis was probably number 1 on Johnny's list of comedians he couldn't stand, revealed a former Tonight Show producer. Not because of professional rivalry, but because Johnny saw how Lewis treated people when the cameras weren't rolling, and it disgusted him. Lewis's appearances on The Tonight Show were notorious among staff members for the tension they created. According to multiple accounts, Lewis would arrive with an entourage of sycophants, make impossible demands, and berate crew members for the slightest perceived misstep. He was arrogant, abusive to staff, and particularly cruel to women, recalled a former stage manager. He'd smile and charm the audience, then turn around and scream at a female production assistant for bringing him the wrong brand of water. The contrast was jarring. One incident in particular reportedly cemented Lewis's place on Carson's mental blacklist. During a commercial break in the mid-1970s, a young female internally entered Lewis's dressing room with a message. According to multiple witnesses, Lewis unleashed a tirade so vicious that the young woman quit television altogether. Johnny heard about it and was livid, said a former cameraman. He made sure that in turn got a personal apology from the executive producer, but he never forgot how Lewis had treated her. Beyond his behavior on set, Lewis's personal life revealed further contradictions. Despite his public image as a champion for children with disabilities, he allegedly abandoned his own daughter and refused to acknowledge her throughout his life. And while he teared up on camera during his famous telethons, off camera he reportedly mocked the very children he claimed to be helping. He smiled for muscular dystroph and screamed at interns 5 minutes later. Remembered a longtime NBC employee. Johnny found that kind of two-faced behavior reprehensible. As Carson might have wryly observed, Jerry could make you laugh unless you worked for him. Then he just made you cry. Funniest monologue I've ever heard. Heard you many, many years. Tonight was the funniest. So enjoy it. 2. Don Rickles. When the insult comic wasn't joking, Don Rickles built his entire career on insult comedy, a brash, take no prisoner style that earned him the nickname Mr. Warmth ironically, and made him one of the most distinctive comedic voices of his generation. Audiences loved his act, laughing along as he skewered celebrities, politicians, and ordinary people alike. According to those close to Carson, the troubling reality was that Rickles' caustic stage persona wasn't an act at all. It was his genuine personality unleashed without the mitigating factor of humor when cameras weren't rolling. Rickles was known for being funny on stage and vicious off it, explained a former Tonight Show booker. Johnny found him professionally hilarious, but personally insufferable. He feuded with writers, mocked staff, and humiliated guests behind the scenes. Unlike many comedians who developed outrageous personas for the stage, but were actually kind and gentle in private life, Rickles reportedly never turned off his aggressive, insulting approach. He simply removed the punchlines when dealing with people he considered beneath him. Insult comedy only works when it's an act. For Dawn, it was just personality, revealed a former writer who worked with both Carson and Rickles. What made it worse was that when he insulted celebrities on camera, they were in on the joke and could respond. When he went after staff members backstage, they couldn't defend themselves without risking their jobs. Carson, who maintained a professional relationship with Rickles and frequently featured him on The Tonight Show, privately expressed concern about the comedian's inability or unwillingness to distinguish between performance and real life. According to those in Carson's inner circle, he found it disturbing that Rickles seemed incapable of normal human interaction without demeaning others. Johnny used to say, "Doan doesn't have a switch. He just has different targets," recalled a former producer. He thought it revealed something fundamentally broken in Rickles' personality, that he couldn't relate to people without attacking them. The contrast between Rickles' popularity with audiences and his treatment of colleagues created a moral dilemma for Carson. While he recognized Rickles' undeniable talent, he reportedly found it difficult to reconcile the comedian's public success with his private behavior. As Carson might have dryly observed, he never turned it off. He just turned it on you. You and Earl Butts are going to do it again. Huh? Isn't he beautiful, Earl Butts? They're fitting him for a lightning rod. Now, 3. Bob Hope, America's beloved comedian with dark secrets. Bob Hope embodied wholesome American comedy for decades. His USO tours entertaining troops made him a national icon, and his clean-cut image as a patriotic family man endeared him to generations of fans. According to Carson's private observations, that image concealed a much darker reality. Hope's public and private personas couldn't have been more different, said a former Tonight Show staff member. Johnny respected Hope's work with the troops enormously. That part was genuine, but he knew that behind the scenes, Hope was cold, calculating, and lived a double life that would have shocked his fans. The most striking contrast between Hope's public image and private reality involved his marriage. While presenting himself as a devoted husband to his wife Dolores, Hope allegedly engaged in affairs with countless women throughout his long career, including showgirl, actresses, and assistants who worked for him. He entertained the troops and betrayed his family, noted a former NBC executive who claimed knowledge of Hope's extramarital activities. Johnny found that hypocrisy particularly distasteful. The gap between Hope's family-friendly image and his actual behavior. Beyond his personal infidelities, Carson reportedly found Hope's backstage demeanor troubling. Unlike his warm, joking public persona, the private Hope was described as cold, politically calculating, and ruthlessly focused on maintaining his position in the entertainment industry regardless of who got hurt along the way. Bob Hope understood power better than comedy. Toward the end, observed a former writer who worked with both men, Johnny felt Hope had become more interested in collecting honors, maintaining political connections, and building his legacy than in actually being funny or kind. What particularly disturbed Carson, according to those close to him, was Hope's tendency to use his substantial political connections to advance his career and protect himself from criticism. Hope cultivated relationships with presidents from both parties and allegedly leveraged these connections to maintain his prominence long after his comedy had ceased to resonate with younger audiences. Johnny believed comedians should be outsiders who speak truth to power, explained a former producer. He was uncomfortable with how Hope had essentially become part of the establishment, using his political friendships to shield himself from the very kind of criticism comedians are supposed to deliver. As Carson might have observed with his characteristic dry wit, Hope brought laughs to war zones and heartbreak to hotel rooms. "Johnny, it's so good to see you. I really mean it. Thank you, Milton. And I want to thank you for that marvelous introduction. I meant it. It's exactly the way I wrote it. 4. Milton Berle, television's first star with a monstrous ego. Milton Berle, known as Uncle Milty and Mr. Television, was America's first TV superstar. His variety show in the late 1940s and early 1950s was so popular that movie theaters and restaurants would close on Tuesday nights because everyone was home watching Berle. According to Carson's private observations, Berle's massive success created an ego that made him one of the most difficult personalities in show business. Berle had a massive ego, was notorious for backstage bullying, and was rumored to physically intimidate younger comics, revealed a former Tonight Show talent coordinator. Johnny found his behavior appalling, especially his knee.